Hello, my name is Valeria Costa, and this is my artist presentation on Tania Bruguera. Tania Bruguera is a Cuban performance artist and activist who lives and works in various cities depending on the location of her long-term projects, but she mainly resides in New York or Havana. She was born in Cuba, a country that has a governmental system in which repressing and punishing public criticism is the norm. The environment that she grew up in was unstable politically and socially, which explains her drive to promote activism and intervention. She has had many run ins with Cuban authorities because she has a desire to push what the regime will allow. When it comes to Tania's education, she received training in Havana and in Chicago. In 1987, she completed her BFA in Fine Arts from Escuela de Arte San Alejandro, Havana. In 2001, she received her MFA in Performance from the Art Institute of Chicago. Tania presents her work in a multitude of ways. She has displayed her work in museums located around the world, and some of them are presented on this slide. She has also performed her art in the streets of Cuba and New York. Lastly, she has an online presence where she presents her work from 1992 up until 2017. She presents long-term projects, short-term projects, books, and collaborations. When it comes to materials, she truly has no limitations. In performance pieces, she has been known to use animals, sound effects, people, and occasionally conventional materials like paper or posters. In one of her most famous performances, titled El Pesa de la Culpa, The Burden of Guilt, she dressed herself in a sheep's carcass and ate balls of earth, salt, and water to recreate symbolically a collective suicide effort which, according to legend, was done by the enslaved Indian population in Cuba. An installation in the Museum Tate Modern in London is one of her most recent projects. The work is located in two separate rooms. When guests enter the first room, all they will see is an open space. The piece is actually the floor, which requires body heat to reveal a hidden portrait. She used an uncomfortable soundtrack, thermochromatic material, and heat-sensitive material to portray the topic of mass migration. For the second space, she decided to pump an organic chemical compound into the air that naturally makes one cry. The point is to force people to have a physical response to the topic of mass migration, as well as become aware of the hidden struggles that others may have. Another project that shows off Bruguera's use of materials is a performance project called The Francis Effect. She stood outside of the Guggenheim Museum in New York asking others to sign a petition that demanded the Pope grant Vatican City citizenship for undocumented immigrants. The traditional materials used were a design that was printed on t-shirts, posters, and the petition. Other than that, she relied on the involvement of others to create art that pushed for social change. Tania Bruguera seems to be concerned with a multitude of issues relating to the human experience, social problems, and political injustices. An example of her interest in the human experience is a performance that she did in 2008 titled Crowd Control. She wanted to test the guests of the museum to see if anyone would question the authority of police officers mounted on horses. The results displayed the behaviors of the crowd as a representation of how the majority of a community will not question authority. The performance was done 6 times, and only once did a person question the police. Tania's concerns surrounding the topics of social and political injustices are also apparent in much of her work. Tentelin's Whisper No. 6, which was performed in 2009 in Havana, illustrates her dedication to activism and intervention. For the performance, she set up a stage, podium, loudspeaker, video camera, and microphones, and provided a temporary platform for free speech. She even placed a dove on the shoulder of each speaker as a symbol of the one that landed on Fidel Castro during a victory speech in 1959. Tania was arrested because of this performance, displaying just how impactful her active activism was. Here's a video from the Guggenheim Museum discussing Tania's performance.
Tania Bruguera's Tattling Whisper, the Havana version, of which we will present the documentation of the video. It's a work that Tania did for the 2009 Havana Biennale. There she created a stage, a podium, with a background of mustard curtains. And the idea was that anybody could go up to the podium and for a minute speak freely and say whatever they wished. In the podium they were flanked by two actors dressed as guards. While each person spoke, a white dove was positioned on their shoulder. This was a reference to one of the first revolutionary discourses that Fidel Castro gave after the winning of the revolution, when a dove landed on his shoulder. And after a minute of saying whatever they wanted, they were kicked off the stage by the guards. So it was a performance, but also it was the first time that people spoke freely in a public space, in a microphone, in Havana. So it demonstrates how something that happens within the art world also goes beyond it.
Due to Tania's methods of attacking issues and presenting her work, it is no surprise that critics have mixed feelings about her. In one of her performances in 2009 titled Self-Sabotage, she read a speech about politics and art. Then she continued to play solitary Russian roulette using a loaded gun, metaphorically representing the game of chance that an artist takes when trying to politically empower its audience. While some may view the performance as a necessary intervention, art critic Daniel Quinz would disagree. He stated in an article by Arte Alla Dia, "She resorts to extremes, to cheap self-shock, before which her call for political art pales in comparison, rendered a dead script that is repeatable but emptied of convictions." Here's a clip of her performance by the YBCA.
To understand the social being, at times, we should not survive.
On the other hand, some critics believe that her projects are a sustainable way of bringing different artists, cultures, and economic institutions together to craft alternative methods of exercising power. Art Forum presents this idea by talking about her most recent long-term project, Immigrant Movement International, which has successfully created a community space for refugees and immigrants to learn, create, and share. Its aims are to socially and politically empower immigrants by engaging with local and international communities. By doing this, Tania hopes to lessen the political, social, and economic burdens of a community. Here is a clip from Art21 where she explains her motivation behind this project.
The people in immigrant movement, they are using art to empower themselves. So they have been part of contemporary art as well, and they understand now much better how contemporary art works and everything they can get out of it. People can also grow and understand how to work from their fear, the limitations they have put on themselves once they enter this country.
Tania Bruguera's bravery, passion, and intent is notable. She is someone who truly inspires me because she is unafraid of expressing her truth. She places her own life and career at risk in order to raise awareness and provoke action. She craves a world which is more diverse, inclusive, and free. She shows this with projects like Immigrant Movement International, Tantalin's Whisper No. 6, and Crowd Control. She wants people to question, think, and fight for what is just. Some may say her work falls on the more extreme side, and this does hold true, especially for performances like Self-Sabotage, which could be viewed as irresponsible and dangerous. Although she sometimes pushes the limits too much, her art still deserves praise. She interacts with the community to point out the critical issues and concerns that she views as vital to the growth of social and political freedoms. She has created a large body of work that pushes how people view activism, intervention, and its connection with art. Her vision of art with a purpose is a trend that I hope will continue to flourish in the art community. Thank you for listening and watching my presentation. Hope you guys all have a good day.